Welcome back, my fellow orbs of energy. Welcome back to Anonymous Crone, the podcast where we wander together down the little crooked paths that no one else is brave enough to follow. I'm the Anonymous Crone herself, your hostess with the mostest. And today's topic is one that has fascinated witches, mystics, healers, philosophers, and probably every grandma who's ever walked barefoot through her garden talking to her tomatoes. We're talking about energy. Not the kind that you buy in a can to wake yourself up in the morning, and not the kind that your electric company seems to charge an arm and a leg for. We're talking about the kind that you just can't explain, but somehow always seem to notice. You know what I mean. You walk into a room and you immediately think, oh, nope, and then you slowly back out like Homer Simpson disappearing into that hedge. Or you meet someone for 5 seconds and your whole body says, absolutely not. Or you meet someone that you've never laid eyes on before, and somehow your soul whispers, there you are. That energy. At least that's what many of us in pagan and magical traditions would call it. Now, before someone writes me a strongly worded email explaining the laws of thermodynamics, relax. We're not talking about measurable electricity. We're talking about spiritual energy, the subtle stuff. The unseen current that's been described by almost every culture on Earth under different names. Chi, ki, life force, spirit, or just simply magic. One of my favorite things about paganism is that we don't all have to agree. Imagine that, a religion or a practice where people can disagree without trying to burn each other. Novel concept, right? Some witches believe that every tree has consciousness. Some believe trees simply hold memory. Some think crystals amplify intention. Others think crystals simply focus the human mind. Some believe that the gods literally walk among us. Others see deity as archetypes. Some believe in reincarnation. Some don't. And somehow, we still manage to sit around the same fire roasting marshmallows. Let's talk about frequency. This word has become widely popular over the last several years. Raise your vibration. High frequency. Low vibration. Good vibes only. That last one always makes me laugh. Good vibes only? Honey, have you met humans? We're messy. We're emotional. Sometimes we're magical, but sometimes we're crying in the grocery store because the avocados were $6. Man, life happens. Real witches don't pretend to float around glowing like enlightened woodland fairies 24 hours a day. Sometimes we're anxious. Sometimes we're grieving. Sometimes we're fucking angry. And all of those emotions have something to teach us. And that's where I think people misunderstand frequency. Many spiritual traditions use it as a metaphor. Think of it like tuning a radio. The station is already there. It already exists. Your job is to simply try to tune yourself so you can hear it clearly. If your mind is racing, or if you're consumed by fear, if you're distracted by 27 open tabs in your brain, it's much harder to hear your intuition. And meditation doesn't magically create intuition. It quiets enough noise so you can finally hear what's already there. It's like trying to hear a whisper when somebody's vacuuming. The whisper never disappeared. The vacuum was just really loud. Now let's rein it into witchcraft. Because witches don't simply believe energy exists. No, we work with it. Every spell begins before you even light a candle, before you even draw a sigil, before you even mix the herbs. The spell begins inside you, with intention. People hear that word so much that sometimes they become numb to it. But intention is everything. Imagine two people planting identical seeds. One throws it on the ground while cursing at mosquitoes. The other gently places into fertile soil, waters it carefully, and tends to it every day. Same seed, different relationship. Magic is pretty much the same. The candle isn't magical because it's wax. The herb isn't magical because it's rosemary. The crystal isn't magical because it sparkles. The witch enters into a relationship with those things. That relationship is where the magic begins. I think in today's world, a lot of people forget how important relationship actually is. Relationship with the land, relationship with your ancestors, relationship with yourself. Nowadays, everything is transactional. Buy this, click that, subscribe here. Manifest overnight. If your spell doesn't work in 48 hours, we'll return your money. Magic doesn't really operate like an online shopping program. The old witches knew this. They watched the moon. They watched the birds. They noticed when the mushrooms appear. They knew which creek sang differently after the thunderstorm. They weren't rushing. They were listening. Observation is one of the oldest magical practices. Sit in one place in the woods every week for a year, and you're going to begin to notice things that most people never see. You're going to see the same hawk, the same fox trail. You'll realize Earth isn't random. It's rhythmic. It's rhythm. It creates energy. Have you ever noticed how quickly people naturally begin matching others' paces? Like, walk beside someone long enough and eventually your footsteps synchronize. Sit with someone you're close to, and sometimes you'll breathe together without realizing it. Spend years with someone and you'll occasionally answer each other's sentences. That's resonance. That's connection. Now imagine applying that to your spiritual side. When witches gather in a circle, some of us drum, some chant, or dance. Why? Because the rhythm helps unify intention. Everyone begins moving together, breathing together, focusing together. It's less about making the universe pay attention and more about making ourselves fully present. Presence is an underrated magic. We spend so much time worrying about yesterday and worrying about tomorrow that today gets overlooked. Meanwhile, the crows outside are having a full neighborhood meeting. The oak tree is busy making acorns. The moon keeps changing. Nature never hurries. Yet somehow, it accomplishes everything. And maybe that's one of the greatest magical lessons there is. So let's talk about reincarnation. Now, before anyone starts clutching their pearls or emailing me that traditions believe something different, remember what we always say around our cauldron. Paganism is a forest, not a single tree. Different paths believe different things. Some witches believe we live one earthy life. Some believe we return many times. And some believe that we rest in the summerland between incarnations. Some believe we become ancestors who continue to guide our families. And some people believe that the soul is constantly evolving through countless lifetimes. None of us gets to come back with the receipt proving exactly how it works. We're talking about beliefs and traditions and stories and experiences that have shaped us as witches. I think one of the most beautiful things about reincarnation isn't the idea of us coming back, it's the idea that nothing is ever truly wasted. And think about that for a minute. Every kindness, every mistake, every heartbreak, every lesson, every moment of courage. Instead of disappearing into nothingness, perhaps it becomes part of the soul's education. Maybe the universe isn't grading us. Maybe it's just teaching us. And I like that thought. It feels less about a courtroom and more like a classroom. Have you ever met someone who is like 6 years old, but still carries themselves like they've already been paying taxes for centuries? Those are old souls. Children who speak with startling wisdom. Kids who naturally gravitate toward old music, old books, old crafts. Then we have the opposite kind. People who are 65 and somehow still believe consequences are optional. Old body, brand new soul. Maybe, maybe not, but either way, it certainly makes family reunions quite interesting. Many traditions believe that the soul carries energetic impressions from one lifetime to another. Not necessarily memories that you can replay like a movie, but more like echoes. Imagine walking through a canyon. You shout one word, hi, hi, hi. But it comes back quieter, a little bit more faint, but you still know what the word is. Perhaps, maybe, that's how our soul memories work. An unexplained fear of deep water, a powerful attraction to a certain country, an immediate connection with someone you just met, an ability that you've never formally learned, but somehow you're a natural at it. Now, can psychology explain some of those things? Well, yeah. Can coincidences explain some? Well, of course, if you believe in coincidences. But can spirituality offer another perspective? Yes. The beautiful thing is that we don't have to force one explanation and eliminate the others. Witches tend to become very comfortable with mystery, not because we're avoiding answers, but because we're open and we've learned that not every mystery wants to be solved. Some mysteries just want to be experienced. And that's a different way of looking at life altogether. Modern culture, like today, we want immediate certainty. We're going to Google it, fact check it, rate it, review it. Magic says, sit the fuck back, listen, observe, discern. Sometimes the answers arrive months later, sometimes years, sometimes after you've stopped asking. And sometimes you don't get that answer. And sometimes the answer unfolds throughout the years and you have to put it together like a puzzle. Have you ever noticed you'll spend weeks trying to solve something? And then all of a sudden you're washing the dishes on a Tuesday afternoon and suddenly, boom, there it is. The answer quietly walks into your mind carrying groceries. No fanfare, no dramatic music, just, oh yeah, that works, that fits. I love those moments. We call it an epiphany. But they remind us that wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers to you. Speaking of whispers, let's talk about intuition. People think intuition is some mysterious psychic superpower reserved for witches with dramatic eyeliner and 12 raven feathers in their hair. Although admittedly, the aesthetic is delightful. But intention is something every human possesses. It's simply one of the quietest voices we own. The trouble is, we spend most of our lives turning the volume down. We're taught to ignore those gut feelings. Ignore your dreams. Ignore your instincts. Ignore those little nudges. And then one day something happens and we say, fuck, I knew it. Yeah, you probably did, but you just talked yourself out of listening to it. Witchcraft encourages rebuilding that relationship. Not blindly believing every random thought that pops into your head. Hell no. Discernment here matters. And that's a word that we don't normally talk about. I mean, we do on this podcast because I want to make sure everybody knows. Discernment. That is a very important word. It's learning the difference between fear, wishful thinking, and genuine intention. And that takes a hell of a lot of practice. It also requires honesty. Sometimes what we call intuition is actually anxiety wearing a very clever disguise. Anxiety says, everything's dangerous. Intuition says, something feels a little off. Those two are cousins, not twins. Knowing the difference comes from experience. One exercise that I recommend is pretty simple. Spend 5 minutes every day noticing your body's responses. When do your shoulders relax? When does your breathing deepen? When does your stomach tighten? When does your skin prickle? Our bodies often notice energy a little bit before our minds even try to catch up. Then bring it all back into spellcraft. People ask, how does magic actually work? And my answer is usually, which are you asking? Because you'll get 12 answers from 10 different witches. Some believe deities directly intervene. Some believe spirits assist us. Some believe magic influences probability. Some believe it's entirely psychological. Others believe it's a combination of all those things. But nearly every magical tradition shares a common thread. Energy is directed with intention. So think about lighting a candle. Yeah, anyone can strike a match. A witch pauses first, breathes slowly, mind settles, intentions become clear. The flame becomes a physical focus for an invisible purpose. Not because fire grants wishes, because symbols speak as a language deeper than ordinary words. Humans have always understood symbols. Wedding rings, national flag, family heirlooms, photographs, they're objects. But they can carry meaning far beyond the physical form. Magic works kind of the same way. The athame isn't powerful because it's metal. The wand isn't powerful because it's wood. The cauldron isn't powerful because it's cast iron. They're extensions of relationship, of focus, of purpose. The witch isn't asking the tool to perform the magic. The witch is using the tool to help shape and direct inner energy and outer action. Think of it like sunlight through a magnifying glass. Sunlight spreads everywhere. The magnifying glass gathers it into one concentrated point. Intention does pretty much the same thing. When witches raise their energy, whether they're chanting or dancing or drumming, or even breathing or singing, or even silent meditation, they're concentrating awareness. The goal isn't to force the universe to obey. It's to align yourself so completely with your purpose that every part of you is moving in the same direction. your mind, body, spirit, your will, your heart. And that's powerful, even outside of magic. Have you ever noticed how extraordinary, ordinary people become when they're completely aligned with something that they believe in? That's energy too. And since we're talking about moving energy, let's answer one of the biggest questions I hear a lot. How do witches actually move energy? Not metaphorically, not poetically. What the hell are we doing? Well, first, let me disappoint Hollywood for just a second. There is considerably less lightning shooting from our fingertips than movies would have you believe. Moving energy is surprisingly subtle. Close your eyes for a moment. Now imagine you're holding your hands about 6 inches apart. Relax your shoulders. Take a slow breath. Now gently move your palms closer together. Then farther apart, slowly. Many people begin to notice something. Maybe warmth, maybe tingling, maybe pressure, maybe absolutely nothing, and that's okay. This isn't a pass or fail exam. For many practitioners, that sensation becomes stronger over time, not because they're gaining magical superpowers, but just because they're paying attention. And awareness is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the easier it becomes to notice these subtle things. We become students of subtlety, and subtlety is something modern life doesn't exactly encourage. Everything is louder, brighter, faster. Scroll, swipe, click. You know what I mean. And the old witches have understood something that we've almost nearly forgotten. Energy follows attention. Energy follows attention. Where you consistently place your focus, your life slowly begins to grow there. If all day you're feeding fear, your fear becomes well fed. If every waking moment you're rehearsing those worst case scenarios, well then your nervous system starts to believe that they're already happening. And this is one reason why so many magical traditions place such importance on intention before ritual. Not because you're pretending that negative thoughts don't exist, but you're choosing which seeds deserve your water. I remember years ago talking to an elderly woman at PPD in Savannah, Georgia. She might have been in her 80s. She looked at me with those wonderfully mischievous eyes, the ones that the old women just seem to earn. She said, "Honey, where intention goes, life follows." And that's it. She walked away like she just handed me the meaning of existence. But you know what? I've never forgotten it. Sometimes wisdom arrives wearing orthopedic shoes. People sometimes ask me if I believe that magic is real. I usually just smile, because I think they're asking the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what happens to a human being who chooses to live intentionally? Someone who notices the moon or who honors the changing seasons, who speaks kindly when no one is watching, who treats every living thing as though it possesses worth. Whether you call that magic or mindfulness or even prayer, the result is the same. The world becomes more enchanted. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That's the quiet secret that the old witches knew. Magic doesn't always change reality. Sometimes it changes the eyes that are looking at it. And once your eyes have learned to recognize wonder, it's very difficult to go back to seeing an ordinary world. You'll notice crows differently, the wind differently, the moon differently. You'll catch yourself smiling at old trees, and you'll find comfort in thunder instead of fear. You'll recognize that every ending is quietly preparing for another beginning. That's the rhythm of the craft. It's not perfection. It's a relationship, with yourself, with the earth, with your spirit. If reincarnation is real, which I personally, yes, I believe it is real, one day you're going to return and stand beneath that very same oak tree that comforts you now. Perhaps you'll feel oddly at home without knowing why. Maybe you'll smile for no reason at all. And maybe the tree will remember you too. Now that is a lovely mystery. And I think some mysteries deserve to remain wrapped in moonlight. But as always, don't take my words as absolute truth. Take them as an invitation. Read widely, question, practice thoughtfully. Let your own experiences shape your path. A wise witch isn't the one with all the answers. They're the one who never stops listening. All right, it's time for question and answers. This week's question was emailed to me from Amy. And if you ever have any questions for this old crone, please email me at acronepodcast@gmail.com. Amy writes, Hello, my name is Amy. We met at a local pagan event a little while back, and I've been listening to your podcast ever since. See, I told you I would. I do have a question, though, that's been on my mind. Do you believe that reincarnation is real? Is it something that most pagans believe in, or is it more of a personal choice? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you, Amy. Hi, Amy. It was great meeting you, too, and thank you so much for writing in. The short answer is maybe. Reincarnation is a belief held by many pagans. I personally believe it. But it's definitely not a requirement. Some believe our souls we return again and again to learn our lessons. Others believe that we join our ancestors in the other world after this life. And some simply just don't know, and that's all right too. But for me, I think reincarnation makes a lot of sense. Nature is built on cycles. The seasons, the moon, birth, death, and rebirth. Why wouldn't our souls be part of that rhythm too? While none of us can prove it, a lot of us do believe it. But hold your beliefs lightly, stay curious, and let your own experiences guide you. And I'm glad you wrote in with this topic, because if you've gotten this far, you've heard like a whole section on this episode on reincarnation. So I hope that at some point in this episode, I've answered your question. Thank you again for writing in, and thank you again for listening to Anonymous Crone. I really appreciate it, and again, it was an honor to meet you as well. And like I said, all of you out there, if you have a question, a cool story, or just a thought at 3 a.m., please email me at acronepodcast@gmail.com. And now it's time for our guest spot. If you were with me last week, in our last episode, we met the owner of Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, the Metaphysical shop here in Liberty, Texas. And I told you there was a clinic in there called healingtherootwellness. Well, I had the honor of actually interviewing Dr. Leyla Howard, who runs the clinic. She's a doctor of naturopathy. She was so gracious to not only tell me about what she does, but she showed me as well. She did a full scan, a quantum health analysis, and it was one of the coolest things ever. So I'm going to let Dr. Leyla Howard take over from here. Here is that interview from Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. I am at Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, and I'm speaking with Dr. Leyla Howard. She runs the Healing the Root Wellness Clinic here at the shop. She's a doctor of naturopathy. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Tell me a bit about what that is.
So, doctors of naturopathy, we're on the other side of medicine from our traditional allopathic doctors, which is who you see on a normal daily basis, your family practitioner, an oncologist, rheumatologist, the doctors you see at the hospital. Traditional allopathic doctors are taught in school to treat symptom clusters. They treat, diabetes as a symptom of a malfunctioning pancreas. So they don't treat the pancreas, they treat the diabetes. Naturopathic doctors, we treat the pancreas. We treat what is causing the symptoms. We don't treat the symptoms.
So true to your name, you're actually treating the root of
Yes.
the problem. That
Yes.
is wonderful. We just did a quantum health analysis and also a bioplasm frequency scan.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. I was at a loss for words. It is super cool. Can you explain what that is
Sure.
and what it does?
So my specialty as a doctor of naturopathy, we all kind of have our niches. Some doctors of naturopathy specialize in peptides or specialize in functional medicine. I specialize in quantum health, quantum medicine, frequency medicine, quantum biology. So my specialty is frequency medicine. I have two machines. One is the quantum health analysis. It's like a snapshot. It gives us a little bit of a look into how's your body functioning, what is going on. Are there vitamin deficiencies? Are there trace element deficiencies, coenzymes? Is there, there are certain medications and things that will cause our kidneys to go into overdrive, to make too much red blood cells. It makes we have too much blood running around the system, which makes us sick, overwhelms our organs. So it's kind of a snapshot overall of what's going on in the body. The bioplasm frequency scan is the whole blueprint where we can really take a deep dive. Each organ is scanned, each system is scanned, the bones, the bone marrow, your blood cells, your chromosomes. We take a deep dive into what's really happening at the core, under the surface, literally at the root. What is happening? Is everything functioning the way it's supposed to? And those two scans correlate because our vitamin Bs can, and this is just an example, so vitamin Bs are important to thyroid health. People, especially now, we're seeing a lot of thyroid diagnoses. Thyroids are not functioning correctly, they're under-functioning, they're overperforming. We're seeing a lot of Hashimoto diagnoses, which is an autoimmune inflammatory response. It's a flare-up. When we get to the root of those problems, 90% of the time, it's going to be a deficiency issue that's affecting the thyroid, and our thyroid controls our whole body. So it's kind of how the machines work. One allows us to see, it gives us a snapshot, hey, we may have a problem here. The other machine really gives us the blueprint to what's going on. It helps us find bacteria, funguses, viruses, parasites, some of those things. If we get a bacterial imbalance in our gut, it will affect our brain. We fix the gut and we fix a lot of issues. So the bioplasm is the blueprint to the body.
I noticed on the scan that you said it was correcting some of the frequencies that were off.
Yes. So the bioplasm also, after the scan, I can use frequency medicine to correct issues. And you can watch it live. As you got to see, you get to watch the frequency correct. So when the machine finds an imbalance, whether it's medicinal, some medicines can cause our other organs. Like you may be taking a medication for diabetes that could be affecting your liver, which is a common practice because diabetes medicine is filtered through the liver. You'll see an imbalance in the liver, and it's because of the medication you're taking for diabetes. Frequency medicine can be applied to help correct that imbalance, to help your liver function better, to process the medication better. I was an allopathic nurse for 30 years, and my last 10 years were in oncology. It just doesn't help anybody. Nobody gets better. So
just keeping people sick and making money.
Yes. We never saw anybody get healthy. A lot of the major side effects of the medications were given, even in chemo, as a chemo nurse, the main side effect of most chemos is a different type of cancer. So our patients, it was a never-ending cycle that they couldn't get out of. And there's a lot of people don't know that there's other help out there.
So with what you do, does it benefit cancer patients?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's one thing I specialize in too, is bridging the gap, helping cancer patients if they want to stay on chemo, if they want to do radiation. There are ways to do that and keep the body healthy so they don't deteriorate throughout the process, through the treatment process. And if they're interested in alternative therapies, doctors like me, doctors in naturopathy, we're there to help support that, to educate them, to help them get started and head them in the right direction.
You're also a sister of the craft.
I am.
Does that ever affect your everyday duties?
It does sometimes. It does. Some people don't want to see me as a doctor because I'm not Christian. I am pagan. I am married to a Christian. And we live life just fine together. We've been married for 20 years. He believes how he believes, and he believes that Christians are supposed to be tolerant. At the end of the day, I don't understand why the two religions don't get along.
Everybody's on their own path.
Yes.
And that's something that everyone needs to realize.
Yes.
What I believe shouldn't affect you liking me or not.
Yeah, exactly. So. And I do have people that will come in and they will want to see me, and then when they find out, and I don't advertise it. I don't choose to sit down and talk to my clients or patients about my religion, but if they ask a question, I won't lie. And if they don't feel like that's the thing for them, then I'm okay with that too, because to me that means the universe is saying that energy wasn't supposed to be here anyways.
Right.
So,
is there anything else you'd like to say before we close this out?
Just if you're struggling with a medical path that you're on, if you're struggling with wellness and health, and just know, people need to know that there are alternatives that do work, even though as a society we've been taught that they don't. They do.
Well, I'm going to list your information, the shop's information, where you can be found, the address, everything in the show notes of this episode. So people can reach out to you and say, hey, and get more information that way.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining that and showing me how it worked and doing my scan. And for all of you out there, I'm also going to have in the show notes where to find Dr. Leyla Howard, how to get in touch with Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, where the clinic is. And if you're in the area, set up a scan because it's pretty awesome. And as always, here is tonight's Crohn's blessing. May your spirit rise like morning mist, yet your feet stay rooted in sacred ground. May your heart know every lifetime's lesson, while your soul still smiles in wonders found. May the magic you send into this world return, as hope when skies are gray. And may the old ones walk beside you, lighting your path with love every day. Until next time, my beautiful witches, keep your heart open, your mind curious, and your spirit grounded in the quiet magic woven throughout every ordinary day. From my hearth to yours, thank you for letting this old crone walk beside you, even just for a little while. And until next week, merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. See you next week here at Anonymous Crone.